Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Hope you're all well. A riot by hundreds of kids in a major capital city. It's got to be somewhere else in the world, hasn't it? But no, this was London. Stay tuned for the details. Forget the political spin and the tired, predictable excuses. The thuggery that descended on Clapham on a Saturday and a Tuesday in late March wasn't a protest. It wasn't a cry for justice. It was a pathetic game played for likes, shares, and a few seconds of viral fame. This is the story of how a TikTok trend turned a London suburb into a playground for destruction, leaving a community terrified and demanding to know why the perpetrators were treated with kid gloves. This was mindless chaos orchestrated for clicks. Imagine being locked inside a supermarket. You're trying to buy dinner and suddenly staff are bolting the doors, shouting for everyone to get away from the windows. Outside, hundreds of masked youths are swarming the high street, screaming and running into traffic, setting off fireworks on the common. This isn't a scene from a dystopian movie. This was the terrifying reality for shoppers and families in Clapham as the Easter school holidays began. It happened not once but twice, and the pathetic reason why and the feeble response to it will change how you see the world outside your own front door. It all started, as so many modern stories of mayhem do, with a few posts on social media. The call went out on TikTok and Snapchat for a link-up, a deceptively benign term for a mass gathering designed for one purpose: disorder. Similar events had already caused chaos in other cities just days earlier. The posts promoting the Clapham event created a feedback loop of hype. Clips from a smaller but still disruptive gathering on Saturday were shared widely, acting as a trailer for a bigger sequel. This was nothing to do with a cause. Authorities have been clear that this has no link to any political or social movement. Instead, the motivation was something far more primal and pathetic in our online world. The goal was simple: show up, cause as much chaos as possible, and, most importantly, film it. The more audacious the thuggery, the more reckless the actions, the greater the reward in views and online notoriety. Hundreds of teenagers, many hiding their faces behind masks and balaclavas, answered the call. They weren't there to steal, not primarily anyway. They were there to perform. They were actors in their own adrenaline-fueled fantasy, and Clapham High Street was their unwilling set. The community was about to become collateral damage in a desperate and selfish quest for viral fame. On Saturday, the first wave hit. A mob of young people descended on Clapham High Street, storming a number of businesses. The chaos was brief but intense. Police imposed a dispersal order and arrested 3 teenage girls, but this was just the prelude. Tuesday was different. The crowd was bigger, estimated at several hundred strong, bolstered by the online buzz from the weekend. The mood was more volatile and aggressive, and from 5 p.m. reports flooded in. The youths began on Clapham Common, lighting fires and setting off fireworks before swarming towards the high street. This is when real terror gripped the community. Major retailers were targeted. Marks and Spencer's, Sainsbury's and Boots were all forced to lock their doors, trapping customers and staff inside for their own protection. A security guard at M&S later said police had warned them in advance to expect chaos, begging the question of how prepared were they really. One 25-year-old witness described being in M&S when police ordered the doors locked, waiting until they could be escorted out by officers. On the street, it was pandemonium. Youths ran wild in traffic and tried to force their way into shops. One worker who works at the Rooster Spot chicken shop said 70 to 80 kids flooded into his store. He described them as rude and aggressive, and he eventually had to close on police advice during his busiest time. For over an hour, parts of Clapham were under siege, not by an army, but by a mob of teenagers armed with smartphones, all documenting their rampage for shallow entertainment. Faced with hundreds of rioting youths over 2 separate nights, the Metropolitan Police response came under intense and deserved scrutiny. On both occasions, a Section 35 dispersal order was authorised, giving officers the power to break up the crowds. Around 100 officers were deployed to manage the chaos on the second night. Yet, for the scale of the disorder, the number of arrests was shockingly, insultingly low. Following Tuesday's chaos, which involved hundreds of participants and multiple assaults, initial reports again pointed to only a handful of arrests. In total, a mere 6 teenage girls, some as young as 13, were arrested across the 2 nights for offences including assaulting an emergency worker. Beggars belief. The incident left 5 people assaulted, 4 of whom were police officers. 1 officer was even hospitalised. Despite this, in a move that baffled and infuriated the terrorised community, the police classified the event as antisocial behaviour and not a riot. That's typical of the police dumbing down another event that they couldn't control. This official framing sends a dangerous message that you can participate in a mob rule with almost no personal consequence. Critics rightly argue that the police are either hamstrung by procedure or simply unwilling to act decisively against a large group of youths. The strategy appeared to be one of containment rather than enforcement, a decision that teaches teenagers that the law is optional if you have safety in numbers. While the Met has since vowed more arrests will follow as they review footage, for many in Clapham the damage is done. A precedent of impunity has been set. So why did this happen? It's easy to look for complex social factors, but the evidence from Clapham points to a much more uncomfortable and modern truth. This wasn't an uprising born of desperation. It was an event fueled by a pathological need for online attention and a staggering lack of personal accountability. Authorities and witnesses are clear. The chaos was not linked to any political cause. The participants themselves, through their actions, betrayed their true motive. They were filming themselves laughing and running amok. The goal was not to make a statement, but to create content. It was, as some have dubbed it, performative chaos. This is the disturbing psychology of a viral trend, where notoriety, no matter how shamefully it's gained, is a currency. The risk of a criminal record, which police have warned can ruin future prospects, is an abstract concept when weighed against the immediate gratification of digital fame. Ultimately, the events in Clapham expose a disturbing moral vacuum. It's a crisis where the thrill of destruction and the validation of an anonymous online audience have become a recreational activity. The police plea for parents to take responsibility to know where their children are and what they are doing reveals a difficult truth. The battle for order is no longer just on the streets, but on the screens in our homes, where the next call to lawlessness is just a click away. When the mobs dispersed and the last fires were extinguished, Clapham was left with a lingering sense of fear and anger. For the shopkeepers and their staff, the experience was terrifying. Businesses already struggling had to endure a siege because of the selfish actions of a few hundred teenagers. The economic impact is real. A local chicken shop owner lost a night of peak time business, but the emotional cost is higher. Residents expressed feeling unsafe in their own neighbourhood, with one telling reporters it feels very chaotic and dangerous. Families were barricaded inside supermarkets waiting for an all clear that felt like it took forever. There is now a palpable anger and a demand for accountability, largely directed at what residents see as toothless policing. The lack of serious consequences has only emboldened these youths, creating a real risk of escalation. As the Easter bank holiday approaches, businesses and residents are bracing themselves for a repeat performance. The police promise a robust and visible plan and a zero-tolerance approach, but for a community that felt abandoned, these were just words. They have seen what happens when law and order are treated as a game, and they are afraid the next round is about to begin. But now I want to hear from you. Who is truly to blame for this disgrace? Is it the delinquent teenagers themselves, the social media platforms that enable them, the parents who are not parenting, or a police force that seems to have lost the will to enforce the law? What would a real deterrent even look like? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The story of the Clapham disorder isn't just about Clapham. It's about a viral contagion of lawlessness that is spreading. The blueprint is the same: A social media call to action, a gathering of masked youths, and a rampage of consequence-free chaos performed for an online audience. We can no longer afford to dismiss these kids as messing around or simple antisocial behaviour. It's a fundamental breakdown of social responsibility fueled by platforms that reward thuggish behaviour with attention. The police warning to parents to take responsibility is a stark admission that this problem begins at home with a catastrophic failure of discipline. The events in late March were a preview of a summer of chaos if our police don't start policing and parents don't start parenting. This isn't just about protecting businesses, it's about the right of ordinary people to live without fear. This is a crisis of youth culture and it needs to be stamped out now, before the next TikTok trend turns your high street into a war zone. If you're a parent and you live in the Clapham area and your kid was out on that night and you don't know what they were doing and you haven't questioned them and grounded them for 50 years if they were involved in this, you are an irresponsible parent and you should go to jail for what your kids have done because you are as irresponsible as they are. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you again soon.